Czechast, a podcast in English about Czech and Moravian society, history, culture and economy.
Hello and welcome to Czechast, the podcast in English about all things Czech. Today's episode touches on a topic that can still spark strong emotions and sometimes heated debate: transgender people and how they are perceived in Czech society. For some, it is a matter of basic human dignity and identity. For others, it raises questions about tradition, language, or the pace of social change. Whatever your view may be, the conversation is definitely happening, not just in Czechia, but across much of the world. So my guest today is Lenka Králová. For many years, she worked as a software engineer, and in recent years, she has also become a visible voice in the Czech public debate about transgender issues. On YouTube, she hosts the talk show V Transu, where transgender people speak openly about their lives and experiences in the present-day Czech Republic. As Lenka explains in our conversation, something that may seem like a small bureaucratic detail, designating your sex in your ID documents, matters a lot for her.
It's just 1 and a 0 in a database. It's a letter on your ID card. It's just a piece of information, nothing else, which doesn't really serve a value for most of the population. But if you are trans, it just exposes your secret to people who shouldn't be aware of it.
Speaking publicly about transgender issues and hosting a podcast like V Transu also brings attention and sometimes hostility and even attacks on social media.
In a way, it was very depressing because this teenager, it took him maybe 10 seconds to write 3 lines of a comment. And it was something that was something about Hitler and stuff. So it was, I just picked a random comment which was like obvious that it's like
and
illegal.
It was obviously mixed with pro-Nazi kind of rhetoric as well.
It was exactly.
And as Lenka explains, with police help, encounters like this can sometimes end in a surprisingly human way.
Then I got a long apology from him, a several pages long letter written in hand with apology. Then I got another letter from his mom, and they were like, please, this was just like some, teenage
moment. Let's call it that. So it was positive in the end.
It was positive in the end, but you never know because the social media, they are anonymous. You don't know who is writing the comments, and very likely many of these really hateful comments are coming from teenagers.
So, in the next half hour, we'll talk about Lenka's personal journey, about the reactions she encounters in Czech society, and about the wider debate surrounding transgender identity today. This is Czechast, and I'm Vít Pohanka.
Czechast, a podcast in English about all things Czech. Whether you're an English-speaking expat living in Czechia and Slovakia, or a descendant of the Czechs, Moravians and Slovaks who left for a better life in America, Australia, Britain or Canada so long ago that you don't speak the language of the old country, this podcast in English is for you.
My name is Lenka Králová. I spent most of my life working as a software engineer, but I recently quit my job. And for about 6 years now, I'm doing a podcast on YouTube called V Transu, where I invite trans people to talk about their life. And my aim is to show to the public that we are people just like everyone else. And I'm a trans woman myself. So I started the transition about 6-7 years ago.
What was it like? And you came out, I think you were 38, is that right?
Yes, I was 38. Well, it was like a roller coaster. It was a really difficult period of my life. I was excited very much, looking forward for it, because that's something you suppress in you for most of your life. And then you decide, then you learn what's your problem, what you have to do with your life, and with that comes excitement because you are looking forward for your new life. But at the same time, it was so stressful because it's like a step into a void. You don't know what will happen, if you will not lose all of your friends, if you will not lose your job, how people around you will take it. So there was a lot of stress. So excitement and stress at the same time mixed together. A roller coaster of emotions.
I have so many questions, actually. I don't know where to start. Let me start like this. What was it like before you came out, and what made you came out finally? Why not at the age of 36? Why at 38? Why not at 40? Why, how did you recognize that moment that I have to take this step?
I knew that there is something different with me since early childhood. I had fantasies when I was 9, 10 years old. I had fantasies that I'm a girl, and I didn't understand them. And I was pretty sure that that's something that no one should ever learn about, that I have to keep it as a secret just for myself. And I lived like this for most of my life. Sometimes I managed to say it to some friends, but they didn't really understand it. And I had an impression about myself that I'm just a guy, that I'm a man who just likes cross-dressing, and that's about it. That's some kind of, like, say, sexual deviation, let's say. I was also attracted to women, which was something that was preventing me from understanding my identity, because I was thinking that if I were a woman, I would be attracted to men, of course. So this was many reasons why I was not admitting it to myself that this is my case. And then the moment where everything changed, the aha moment for me was when I told it to two friends of mine, two girls. And I just wanted some help. I just wanted to, let's say, dress up as a woman, as a kind of a play, but just to enjoy the daylight, not to be hidden behind locked doors all the time. So I came out to them, and I was really stressed doing that. It was really difficult, but they were wonderful. They were very understanding, and they started treating me differently since that moment. The communication has changed. They started taking me as one of them, and they also started using the female gender, even though I really looked like a guy. I had the beard like you have. I really looked very masculine, but they started using the female gender in communication, and I just realized that the feeling that someone is seeing me as a woman, someone treats me like one, that this feeling is so ecstatic, it feels so good. And I just realized I want to have this feeling 24/7 from now on. So for me, that was the moment. But I think it's important to say that the stories are very different, very diverse, that every trans person has a slightly different path, how to realize their identity. Some of them, they come out when they are kids, when they are children. For some of them, it takes decades. So every
Each
story
person,
is unique.
A different story, yeah,
Yes.
a unique story. What about the reactions of the people who are closest to you?
Well, with friends, they were all very nice. Colleagues at work, the same. I had no trouble there. The same with parents. I was quite surprised. I was really scared to tell it to my mom, but she was understanding. But the only problem I really had back then was with the person who was closest to me at that time, which was my wife, or my ex-wife now. And we were, for 15 years, we were together. And it was really difficult. And for her, it was like when her husband died. She was really feeling it as a loss. And she didn't accept it in the beginning. We have a child together, so it was all very difficult. We went through a very difficult period, but now, like 6.5 years later, we became very good friends. So time heals everything, maybe. But this was really difficult for me. So everyone took it like wonderfully, but the person who was closest to me really didn't accept it, and this was the most difficult part of my coming out. And then, of course, I was very, very stressed to tell it to the kid. My son was 6 years old back then. Now he's 13. But surprisingly, he took it very well. He was very understanding, and I just realized that small kids, when they don't have prejudice, they are very understanding.
Does your son live with your ex-wife, or does he stay with you, or do you, interchangeably kind of take care of him?
Yeah, interchangeably. He's, let's say, legally he is with her, but because we have very friendly relationship now, we are just able to negotiate the time, let's say. So he's staying with me maybe a third of the time, let's say.
This is Czechast, a podcast in English about all things Czech. So I like to ask about the Czech society. How was the acceptance? We talked about the people who are closest to you. How about in everyday life? You were very open about it. You started YouTubing about it. Did you meet some negative reactions, perhaps?
Well, of course I did, but only on social media. It's very interesting because it just shows how much we live in bubbles. And if you are trans, the bubble you live in is basically the only thing that matters. So I was lucky with my bubble. I was working in the IT sector. I was a software engineer. So I just didn't face any trouble at workplace. Also, like all of my friends, except the wife, were nice to me. So I didn't have any problems, and I became a publicly known person. And I get so much hate every day on social media. Still, all the time. It's like whenever you write something, I'm of course blocking people. I'm moderating the comment sections. But whenever there is an interview with me somewhere else than on my platform, like maybe this interview, it's crazy. Immediately crazy. Of course, the X or the Twitter is the worst one. But I get these hates on social media all the time. But I was lucky enough not to get any hate face to face yet. I know that sometimes somebody once wrote me in a comment that they saw me in a tram and that they were disgusted and blah blah whatever. But the guy didn't have the courage to come and say to
come
me
up and start speaking to you face to face.
I know I was standing next to him in a tram, but he didn't have the courage. And so far, nobody had the courage to tell me something in person. So I'm very lucky with that. And of course, this can change, I know.
Perhaps a difficult question. Have you ever felt physically threatened?
Well, I do get threats like this.
Of physical violence, basically.
Of physical violence on social media. Once I made an experiment and I reported it to the police. And they were able to find who wrote the comment. And it was a 15-year-old guy.
50?
15.
15.
15. It was a teenager living alone with his mom. Then I got a long apology from him. A long, several pages long letter written in hand with apology. Then I got another letter from his mom. And they were like, please, this was just like some, teenage moment. Let's call it that. So it was positive in the end. So it was positive in the end, but you never know because the social media, they are anonymous. You don't know who is writing the comments, and very likely many of these really hateful comments are coming from teenagers. It's quite possible. We don't know.
You know, I cannot compare my experience with yours, but the only time I really got a lot of hate on social media, and I'm an old guy, I'm mainly on Facebook, and Facebook is for the old people, as my son says. The only time I really started getting very hateful reactions was when I went to Kiev during the war, when I went to Ukraine. And I can't imagine what it's like. I mean, is it a lot of stress? I mean, if you have to live with this?
Not really, because as I said, I never faced it in person. So for me, it's like just a virtual space where it happens. But I know this is some kind of coping mechanism that I have. So I'm maybe naive, but this is the way I cope with it. I just say to myself in my head that this is happening in the virtual space, and it's not really affecting my day-to-day life. I don't. If I didn't go to the social media, I wouldn't even know that transphobia exists.
Well, in a way, it can be.
And I'm not saying that Czech society is accepting, because it all depends on the bubbles. It depends on the city where you live, on what social status you have, and what people you are surrounded with. So I know there are trans people who are having trouble in their day-to-day life.
And again, I mean, when I said that this was Czechast, what I meant, I suppose you wouldn't have some sort of comparison, or maybe there were some polls, I don't know, how the Czech society compares, let's say, to German society, or Austrian, or Slovak, Polish, in the European context.
I don't have data for it, but I have a very strong feeling that the closer you are getting to Kremlin, the worse it is.
Yeah, the more you go east, yeah?
The more you go east.
The worse.
Like the distance from Kremlin is the key factor, I guess.
That's kind of interesting. I wanted to ask you, how about the police? What was their reaction? Were they, were they active?
You mean when I reported?
Yeah, when you reported it. That's what I meant.
They were very nice, very active. It was, in a way, it was very depressing, because this teenager, it took him maybe 10 seconds to write 3 lines of a comment. And it was something that was something about Hitler and stuff. So it was, I just picked a random comment, which was like obvious that it's like
and it
illegal.
Was obviously mixed with pro-Nazi kind of rhetoric as well.
It was exactly, there was this, it was, I don't want to quote it, but it was like quoting Hitler and something, and it was really threatening. And it was obvious that it's illegal. So, and I just picked it randomly, because otherwise I would be going to the police 5 times a week. And the depressing part was how much bureaucracy there is around it. I spent more than 1 hour in the office. They
have to write a report,
They had to write a report, which was very long, and it took so much time and so much effort compared to how easy it is to write something like this. So
you do it in 10 seconds.
You do it in 10 seconds, and then just for the police to do something about it takes hours of people, which is crazy. So it's not, the path to the justice is very difficult.
For me, when I mentioned the hate that I got because I went to Ukraine, I thought, in a way, it was a recognition that what I do really matters, that people heard me on radio and started writing hate mail. So,
and that's true. That's true.
Couldn't you take it like that?
It is a kind of recognition, of course. It just shows you that you're doing the right thing when you get something like this, of course. And the other aspect of it is that it's basically free promotion. Because they just feed the algorithms. The algorithms then think that my posts are something important when it gets lots of comments, even though they are hateful. And I think my most successful post had way above 1 million views on Instagram, and I just calculated it that they saved me, I think, over like 100,000 crowns in
promotion money that you would have to spend.
That I would have to spend and pay to Mark Zuckerberg. So they saved me a lot by this.
1 million, was that posting Czech?
Yes.
How do you get 1 million views? I mean,
This was the a moment actually.
Or do you mind describing it a little bit?
Yeah, I made a photo of me with my new rodný list, with my birth certificate.
So that was last July or the last August?
Last summer.
Last summer, yeah.
So this was this moment for me that I was waiting for so long. And so I was like, I just came out from the office where I got the paper, and I just sat in the car and I just like made a selfie in my car with the birth certificate, and it just broke the internet. So,
well, good for you. As you mentioned, this was last summer when the Czech legislation changed, or rather it went into effect, the new Czech legislation. Again, if you were to describe it for the listeners, what has changed in Czechia for transgender people last summer?
So since last summer, you don't have to get castrated. Basically, you don't have to have your
chemically castrated. You have
not chemically. You have to be
surgically.
Surgically, you had to have. If you are a trans woman, you had to have your testicles removed. If you were a trans man, you have to have your ovaries removed surgically, in order to legally change your gender. And it's now important to just describe what the legal gender actually is. It's just 1 and a 0 in a database. It's a letter on your ID card. It's just a piece of information, nothing else, which doesn't really serve a value for most of the population. But if you are trans, it just exposes your secret to people who shouldn't be shouldn't be aware of it. And at the same time, in Czechia, you cannot freely change your name. We have a law that says that you can change your name to whatever you want, but first of all, the name has to be existing, which is great nonsense, because the Czech law basically says that all names have been created in past, and there is no way a name can be created in future, which is totally crazy, because every name that you pick has to be invented in some like moment in history. And it also says that the name has your name has to fit your gender. So unless I would have my testicles surgically removed, I wouldn't be allowed to take the name Lenka. Because that's like strictly a female name.
And you probably couldn't have ova in the end of the name, Králová.
As well. For trans men, it was improved a bit, like a few years before, because now women don't have to have the ova in their name anymore. But this is a rare case of discrimination of men. It's a rare case where men are discriminated. So you are not allowed to pick ova even if you wanted. And this is the only problem. Basically, you have to expose your identity to all sorts of people that just shouldn't know it. Like I just did it today here. I showed my ID card
at the reception
of Czech Radio. When you want to rent skis, when you want to go to a ski resort and you rent skis, you show your ID card there. You show it to at many places, at the post office, or when you go to vote. I also realized that if you want to go to politics, you have to use your legal name everywhere on the voting ballots and stuff. And people think that being trans is something sexual. We are like, Czechia is unique in a way that if you want to undergo transition, you have to go to a sexologist. It was like this in the rest of the world, but it has changed. This is like not like this anymore in the rest of the world. And it's still viewed as a sexological problem, as something to do with sex, but it's really just about life. It's about everyday life. You know, I'm usually saying to people, just think about how many minutes in a week you spend with some intimate activity, with some sexual activity. How many minutes you spend like this, because a week has roughly 10,000 minutes. So how many of the 10,000 minutes you spent with something like that, how important part of your life that is. And of course, there are people who have very strong body dysphoria that really need to have their genitals surgically altered in order to feel good with themselves. But not all people have that. I'm already over 40. I have some life behind me, and I just realized that I really need to take the hormones. I really wanted the hormones to change my face. And when everyone started treating me as a woman, and strangers on the street, when they talk to me as young lady or things like that. I just realized this is all I need, and that I can somehow survive the thing I have like between my legs, because it doesn't affect my life that much. And I was really scared of the surgery. I've never been in a hospital. I've never had any surgery of any kind. So I was really scared, and I didn't want to risk my life just to change my name, because that's like all it is.
It's a bureaucratic kind of thing.
Exactly.
So, in other words, the law that is in effect in Czechia since last summer allows you to do that without surgically changing your sex or having to undergo any operation.
You still need to go to a sexologist and get a diagnosis, which is kind of a protection so that people don't misuse it with some bad intentions. And there are, of course, conservatives are saying that people will misuse it when they go to prison or
in sports. I mean, that's the big
sports or in bathrooms. But most of them are really nonsenses, because the bathrooms really don't matter. The Czech law doesn't basically say like who goes to which bathroom. The Czech law just says like you have to have male and female bathrooms, and that's it. And they don't say like who goes where. But even I lived for many years with the wrong name and with the wrong gender in my ID, and there were no problems in the bathrooms, because the only thing that matters is what you look like. You never show your ID card when you go to a restroom. You never show it, so it doesn't matter. And in sport, it also doesn't matter, because the sport is international. There are various rules in every country. And the sport organizations, they create some rules, their own rules, which are independent on the law in each country.
On the legal system.
Exactly.
Yeah. But, I mean, I suppose there are a lot of people who would be worried that a man changes his sex, or young man, in order to compete among women, so that he or she, if just to have an advantage,
Yes, but if you change your gender legally, it doesn't grant you that you can go to any sport.
To take part in competitions.
To take part in competition on the Olympics. It just simply doesn't. And as I said, sport is international, and the rules for the legal gender are so different in every country that it's impossible really to...
I don't want to be too technical, but this is really something that kind of made me interested. Last year, when I became interested in the legal implications, and in the United States, Donald Trump came to power, one of the first things he did was an official decree, presidential decree, executive order, I should say, which forbade issuing passports that were with an X, basically. That he basically said that you have to be a male or female, and it has to correspond to the sex that you were born with, I think, if I remember correctly. However, this was immediately attacked by courts. I mean, the suits, as far as I know, are still going on. So in the United States, even after that, you can still legally use passport, which doesn't have just male or female. You can have an X, which means that you are, non-binary.
There are some countries who have that.
In Europe, we have that. But we haven't got that in Czechia. That's what I wanted to ask you about.
Yes.
Do you think, this is something that's important or not important?
It's important for non-binary people, for people who just simply don't feel to fit in either of these two
categories, let's say.
So it's important for them. And on the other hand, I think in the most ideal world, there will be no legal gender, because why do you need to have such an evidence? Why do you need to? You don't have, if you go to your passport, you don't have like the size of your penis. You don't have like lots of information there. And I just don't see a point why we need to register such an information about people. In medical documentation, of course, it makes sense, but anywhere else it doesn't. And what is interesting that, for instance, in Czech občanský průkaz, in Czech ID card, we started showing the gender in 1993. Until then, for decades, it was not there and nobody cared.
Nobody cares. Well, because I suppose it was assumed that if you are a woman, you would be ova, in the end, and they could recognize it by the first name. So they just didn't feel the need, to have it there.
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Like right now, it's so important to have it there, and there are so many, like there's so much battling in the political arena, and it just didn't exist. The gender marker was not in Czech ID card for decades, and nobody cared.
Obviously, this whole issue, I think, became very significant, but still a part of kind of broader culture wars. But frankly, in Czechia, I was struggling, before this interview, I was just trying to think, I don't remember ever hearing a debate in the parliament, for example, about that. But you are, I suppose, following this more kind of closely. Have there been debates?
Not really, because my impression is that the politicians were kind of scared of these issues, and they didn't really open the discussion. So the legal change we had last summer was made by a constitutional court. It was not made by the parliament. The parliament was supposed to change the rules in 1 year span, and they didn't. They just ignored it. So yeah, the politicians are trying to ignore it because it's a minefield that they don't want to step in.
Because they might become unpopular if they were to open. And just to put it into context, we still don't have legal marriages of the same sex. We have registered partnership and not legal marriages. On the other hand, I spent some time in Poland, for example, and there are countries like Hungary where I think life is much harder even for transgender people.
Of course. So when people ask me, like, if I could say in general how it's going in Czechia, I said it's like so and so. It's like many things are very good here, much better than in Slovakia, Hungary, of course way better than in Saudi Arabia or Russia and these countries, but still compared to some Western countries.
Just out of curiosity, do you know anything about Ireland in this respect? Because their society is also quite conservative when it comes to abortions,
I don't. There are so many countries in the world.
That's true.
I don't have a detailed overview of what's happening in each of them.
But again, just to mention kind of on the side, as I was working on this program when I interviewed you as well last summer, I was just interested to know, because in the United States there was a big debate whether transgender people could or couldn't serve in the military. And the Supreme Court, I think last summer, decided that the president has the power. It's not that Supreme Court banned, transgender people in the military, but the Supreme Court said that the president has got the power to ban, to say that if you are transgender, you cannot serve. And I thought, well, how is it in Czechia? And in Czechia, it's completely, it's a non-issue because nobody has commented on it as far as I was able to research last summer. But there are countries, and quite a few of them, you would be surprised, where transgender people in Europe, in European Union, cannot serve in the army either. And it just brought me, to just made me think, we are here, saying how conservative the United States government is. And when you look around Europe, hang on, we've got countries, not just Hungary, but I think even...
There was a case in Czech army, or somebody who was applying to serve the army and wasn't allowed to, and it was a long time ago. It's maybe more than 15 years ago. I remember that. but that person was, let's say, she was not mentally healthy.
There were some other issues.
So there were some other issues, but she was, she tried to convert it to a lawsuit, and I'm not sure how it ended up, but that's a long time ago. And right now, I know about one other trans woman who's serving in the army, but I'm not sure if she's anymore. I don't know. I'm not aware of anyone at the moment who would be in the army. So it surprised me with this question because I don't have much to say about it.
But I mean, I wasn't able to find anything. And
me neither.
If so if there isn't a problem, or
the same thing is professional sport. I just I attended a conference about trans people in sport, which was held in Olomouc on the university some few months ago. And so there were doctors and experts about sport talking about it. It's a very complex
issue.
It's a very complex issue. We would spend hours here talking about it. So it depends very much on which sport it is and like in what state of transition the trans woman is and so on. And I just asked one of them if they know about any trans professional somebody who was trans and doing sport as a profession. In Czechia, there is nobody. It's simply zero. So it's a non-issue. It just doesn't affect anybody.
And just out of curiosity, because I'm close to Olomouc, I spent a few years. I was a student in Olomouc. Was it an international conference, or was it?
No, it was in Czech language.
Czech language,
and it was intended mainly for sport coaches. They were the main attendees. So people working as coaches in sport, this was the conference for them. So they are prepared. So that they are prepared for something like that to happen.
And you were invited, or
I wasn't. I wasn't there as a speaker. I was there just as
observe.
To observe, yes.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing because I mean, you say it was meant for coaches. This conference. I actually spoke to a deputy principal of an elementary school in the Vysočina region some time ago, and he was saying that at their school they have transgender. I can't even remember, but it was a boy who wanted to become a woman or
trans girl,
let's say. But he said we are completely unprepared when it comes to physical education. I mean, we don't know, which locker room, to send her or him to, and I just wonder, whether it's just something that even schools will have to deal with in Czechia.
Of course, and these are difficult things to handle, really. So in this case, I think the best is just to talk to the girl and first ask her how she would ideally see it, then try to explain it to the other students so that they understand it. I think not a bad idea is just to offer her an alternative. So to use some other place where she can be alone, for changing the clothes. And
there are still a lot of people, obviously, who will say that there are two sexes. We cannot complicate that. This threatens a traditional way of life. It can be dangerous when it is around children. What do you say to people? And they are not. And there are people who are not nasty, who are not threatening. What would you say to them?
So first of all, there is sex and there is gender. So it's just like hardware and software, basically. So trans people like me, they don't have them in sync, let's say. So the hardware doesn't fit the software, like to put it that way. But even when we talk about the biological sex, it's simply not true that you can just divide all people, 100% of the population, into male and female categories. It was also shown in this conference. It's actually very difficult to define what is biological sex without using the word man and woman, or male or female. If you are not allowed to use these two terms and you try to define what sex is, it's really difficult to do. And there is not a scientific consensus on this. And there are lots of things that can go wrong, let's say. And there are people who just don't fit in either of these boxes. And it can be, they can have different chromosomes. They can have no genitalia at all. They can have both genitalia. There are lots of other options, and there are dozens of them. And these are the other sexes. This like 60 sexes are these cases of what we call intersex people. So people who don't fit in either of these boxes. And then the conservative says, oh, but there are exceptions. But I'm a software engineer, and I know that if there are exceptions, you cannot say like 99.9% is not 100. It simply isn't. So you cannot say that they are just, well, it's a linguistic problem at the same time. It's like what you call a sex then. Well, how you define sex. And most people are not able to define it without using male and female, if you ask them this question. Mm-hmm. So it depends. So you know that there are exceptions, and now what you call these exceptions. So are these people with no sex? So we have like male, female, and then no sex, or we have male, female, and intersex, or we have male and female, and then all these like variations and call mm-hmm. each of them sex because it fits some definitions of sex. So it's a linguistic problem basically, how you call this. But it's not true that all people are men and women only. Even though the numbers are very small, even though it's just a fraction of the population, but as
they
I said,
exist. It doesn't mean
99.9 is not equal to 100.
Well, I suppose a traditionalist, if we are not going to use the word conservatives, might say, well, okay, they are a tiny minority, they have to adjust somehow, to the majority.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you cannot say that they are just two sexes. It's simply mm-hmm. not true. So
as an absolute kind of statement, yeah.
And then, of course, the question is how you define sex. That's like where it all comes from.
So, before we finish, tell me, how do you make your living now? I mean, what's your typical day? What do you do? Because this is basically your kind of raison d'être, kind of reason for existence, isn't it?
Well, so until recently, I was having a full-time job in a software company, and I was doing my podcast in my free time, and it was unsustainable. Mm-hmm. So I quit my job in September, and right now I'm taking a bit of time off. I have like enough savings not to be too worried about it. And I just want to start doing podcasts for a living, basically just like you do. So I will start a Hero account very soon. Maybe it's a matter of days now. Mm-hmm. I want to continue doing Transu, and I still want to continue doing it free as well on YouTube. But I want to put the videos on some other platform in advance. And I'm also starting a new podcast with Adam Šimek, who is a trans guy, and he's a therapist. Mm-hmm. And we will be doing a podcast together, which will be behind a paywall.
And when you say podcast, it means a vlog as well. I mean, in video as well, I suppose.
Video as well. Yes, not only audio.
I know that. I mean, your Transu is very, very successful, mm-hmm. And you are really visible. If you imagine Czech society in, let's say, 10 or 15 years, what would you like to see when it comes to transgender people, and what perhaps gives you hope to go on?
What gives me hope is the comments I receive from people, because I have lots of viewers from the general public, and I get really lots of comments from people who are saying, oh, you totally changed my view on trans people. I thought you are some kind of freaks, deviants, whatever. And now I see you are people, because this is what I show there. I show the stories of real people and their struggle. And there are really many people who write me that it changed their view. And the dream is that this will happen with the whole society, that they will start treating us as just like everyone else, that we are just people just like everyone else. We just have an extra complication compared to the others.
Lenka Králová, well, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you for having me.
So, that was Lenka Králová, the host of the YouTube talk show V Transu, where transgender people in the Czech Republic share their stories and experiences. I understand that conversations about identity, gender, and social change can sometimes be complicated, but I also believe that hearing personal stories can help us understand each other a little better. If you enjoy Czechast, please don't forget to follow or like the podcast on your favorite platform. It really helps us bring you more stories like this one. Thanks for listening. I'm Vít Pohanka. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay curious, and as we say in Czech, naslyšenou.
Czechast, a podcast in English about all things Czech. Whether you're an English-speaking expat living in Czechia and Slovakia, or a descendant of the Czechs, Moravians and Slovaks who left for a better life in America, Australia, Britain or Canada so long ago that you don't speak the language of the old country, this podcast in English is for you.